This week, we've got an exclusive interview with Brother Justin from Flagstaff Lodge Number 7, the hosts of a national event, Camp Cornerstone. Stay tuned for the interview.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 640. I want to thank our supporters of the show, those contributors, fellows, producers, and legacy partners. Without you, we cannot make this show happen. If you're out there and somebody who has signed up to be a producer level or has purchased a producer's pin, thank you so much for that support and for your patience. Our pins are at the last stage of production and are going to be mailed out to me very soon, so thank you for your patience. And if I owe you a pin, again, you'll be among the first to get the all-new WCY Producer's Pin. We've made a few changes, all to celebrate you. If you're curious on how to support the show, head on over to WCYpodcast.com, click on Support the Show, and check out your various options. In the news, presentation schedules. Well, it has been a little bit. I would like to go ahead and promote a couple things that will be happening very soon. Of course, on June 22nd, I will be speaking at the Illinois Lodge of Research Symposium happening in Libertyville, Illinois. If you'd like to attend, please shoot me an email at admin@wcypodcast.com. There's no cost to attend, and it is open to the public. We'll also have other presentation that day by Right Worshipful Brother Spencer Hammond, a virtual genius, if I do say so, and he'll be speaking on a rather unique topic, and I know you will enjoy. And we'll finish that day out with a panel discussion on the 4 tenets of Freemasonry, those 4 cardinal virtues, rather: prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. I will be moderating that panel discussion, and among the participants will be Spencer Hammond, Brother James Fry, who is our senior warden of the Illinois Lodge of Research. We'll have a lot of fun with that. But now let's get into this awesome interview with Brother Justin from Flagstaff 7. Our brothers, we are so lucky to have with us Brother Justin Nelson from Flagstaff, Arizona, who's on the call today, who's taken some time out of his busy schedule to talk to us about the big event that is happening just around the corner. We've been talking about it a little while on the program, and Brother Justin, just wanted to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much, Worshipful Brother Johnson. It's an honor to be here. It's kind of amazing. I'll be completely honest. I've listened to every single one of your episodes. I'm actually just catching up on the tail end of the Masonic Roundtable, so it's a massive honor for me to be here talking to you. I can't thank you enough for having me on.
Well, the honor is ours, brother. I have to say, this whole event that you guys have been putting on just sounds amazing. But before we get into that, can you tell the brothers a little bit about yourself and your home jurisdiction, where you became a Mason, that kind of thing?
Sure. My name is Justin Nelson. I am the senior warden at Flagstaff Number 7, Free and Accepted Masons of the state of Arizona. I actually am a very new Mason, probably compared to the most of the people listening. I was raised on my 30th birthday, actually, in 2021, and started lower down on the line, but Flagstaff it can be a transient town. And so we had some brothers not be able to progress in the line. And so luckily, the ritual was something I was very passionate about. So I was able to advance a little bit quicker than some people, and even more grateful to have the mentor that I have and a lot of past masters at Flagstaff 7 who have been incredibly helpful on teaching me the admin, more part of the pillar chairs and whatnot. So that's been just a huge benefit for me. This year, I am sitting as senior warden, and hopefully I do my job well enough to where, potentially I might be elected to the East next year, which would be a massive honor.
That is exciting. For the guys listening, everybody listening, Brother Justin and his lodge have come up with something called Camp Cornerstone. And I was just wondering if you could start by telling us a little bit about the inspiration behind organizing this event that seems to kind of span the gamut in terms of a fellowship event, a camping event, kind of outdoorsy, but also maintaining, I don't know else to describe it, but there's like a magic up in Flagstaff. I don't know what it is. Like it's outdoorsy. And I've had this fascination with it my whole life because we would take the train, the Southwest Chief, usually to go across the U.S. to go from Chicago area, Union Station down to Fullerton, California. And if we weren't taking the train, we drove. And every time we drove, we stopped through Flagstaff. It was like the place to go. We always went to the visitor centers. It's just such a beautiful country up there. So, but anyway, nonetheless, tell us a little bit about this inspiration behind organizing this particular event.
Sure. As you have kind of mentioned, Flagstaff is really known for how beautiful the outdoors is. So that's something our lodge has been very passionate about doing. For the past 14 years, we've actually hosted a outdoor degree. And it started off where one of the main reasons why we wanted to do it was Flagstaff is about, a couple hours away from the Phoenix lodges. It's still about 45 minutes, hour and 20 minutes from the nearest lodges around us. And one thing that from what I've seen and what I've came into as far as the culture of Flagstaff is we really love visiting with brethren. We really do. It's one of our favorite things to do is just to have visitors from whatever lodge. And so an outdoor degree was something that we thought would be fun to start having brothers come up and visit us for. And so it originally started back in 2007 was our first one. And what we were doing at that point was we would just drive down, a forest road about, a mile or so, very pretty wooded areas, and have our degrees there. The issue was the roads eventually would get washed out from the monsoon season that we have out in Flagstaff in Arizona. And what was happening, this actually happened just a couple of years ago, we were having to haul brothers from, that drove up from Phoenix that didn't have massive trucks or anything to get down these roads. So we would just have them park closer to the main road and then just haul them out and pick up trucks, which was, it makes for good stories, but it's not exactly the most efficient.
The Mason Express.
Yeah, we were having, grand old times. And then it was never actually called what I'm about to call it, but there was a couple of past masters that quietly started calling it the Renegade degree because the degrees ended up getting really popular. Outdoor degrees. We're not the only lodge in Arizona that does an outdoor degree, but we really enjoy them. It's really nice to get outside, be, in nature, the fresh air, God's country, and do a really well put together third degree. And there was a past master, Cal Magnus, I'll quote him, he was quietly calling it the Renegade degree because we got to a point where our crowds were a little bit over the point to where we probably should have had a permit maybe once or twice. And so we lately, so we were officially looking for a place to hold this to where either it was a venue or we were going to look into a permit system and do this properly. So last year, Master of the Lodge, worshipful brother Tom Carpenter, he was really wanting to find a home for this event. So that was one of the inspirations for moving it to the Nordic Center, the Nordic Village. It's about 20 minutes north of Flagstaff. So that's part of it. The person he put in charge of that is this year's current sitting master, worshipful master Brad Ingram. He also he thought this event could be beefed up in a sense where we can do more than what we're doing, especially if we have a venue. We can make this an event with more substance. So that was another part of the inspiration. There's multiple people are contributing to this for sure. And then where I came in with it was I have been listening to the Whence podcast and the Masonic Roundtable podcast religiously. When I came into Masonry, there was, minor education, and we were working with what we had. There was a lot of brothers making effort into that aspect. Yeah. But I was decently well read. I say decently because I, ended up reading the majority of Manly P. Hall's works before I had joined Masonry. Now that I'm a Mason, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe not decently, but enough to have a lot of questions that most people didn't really have the answers to. So I started
Sure.
seeking Masonic education, listened to your podcast. Thank you, by the way, so much for all the work that you put into this. I
Well, thank you.
can't say thank you enough. Yeah. And so I heard about Camp Masonry on your podcast, and I probably the Masonic Roundtable as well. And while I had never attended the event, I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that we could easily do in Flagstaff. There's beautiful camping here. There's campgrounds that we could potentially work with to, hold an event like that. And so I had always had that in the back of my mind where Flagstaff, I think, would be a perfect location for some event such as that. And then it was in 2022 when Worshipful Brother Cal Magnus, I had mentioned him. So this is the past man. He's kind of like the grandfather of Flagstaff 7, if you will. He's that past master that he's the ritual coach. He is there every practice. He is there every degree. He is there every stated meeting. He is just dedicated so much and is such an inspiration to pretty much everyone that comes through those doors.
That's awesome.
And yeah, he has just had a massive passion for making sure the outdoor degree continues. So anyway, Cal, he comes into the lodge someday and he was like, hey, the MRF is coming to Arizona and we need to go. And the majority of people that he was talking to Flagstaff 7, I don't think most of us have actually heard of the MRF.
Sure.
But because it was Cal Magnus, you can pretty much trust if he's saying something's worth to go to, it's worth your time.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, if you get in my car, I'm driving and you can stay in my hotel. And it was like on days that I could get off from work. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Cal Magnus is a massive inspiration for this event. He's on the Camp Cornerstone committee. He has done a lot for Flagstaff 7 and this event. So we go down there, and it's my first exposure to traditional lodges. It's the first time where I'm hearing about these concepts. Andrew Hammer, Worshipful Brother Andrew Hammer was there speaking. There was a bunch of brothers that I had made friends with that just happened to be part of traditional lodges. I just didn't know that. And, very heavy on education, very heavy on beautiful ritual, very heavy on esoteric conversation. So it was like everything that I loved they were doing. So at the event, there's various presentations going on, and they had mentioned the term. It was the first time I heard the term rural lodges. Lodges that weren't essentially urban. And when it was mentioned, it wasn't a derogatory term, but it didn't sound like a compliment, I'll say. And I was just like, hey man, like we have a good time. Like, we have really good ritual, which Flagstaff 7 does. Like I said, Cal Magnus has been really on top of teaching everybody the ritual. I actually was just awarded the Master Ritualist Award just this past Grand Communication. So
that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really awesome to see that project come to fruition. And Cal Magnus, along with a couple of past masters of Flagstaff 7, were massive inspirations for me to do that. I hear this term, and I love everything else that I've been hearing. And then on the way back to Flagstaff, I'm talking to Cal. I was like, okay, how do we bring some of these concepts back to Flagstaff, but in a way that is harmonious with our culture? And immediately I started thinking, I was like, okay, the outdoor degree. We can make this event to where we can take some of these concepts that we just learned of at the MRF and tweak them just a little bit to where they fit Flagstaff 7 in a lot of Arizona culture, and have an event that we can utilize that's something similar to Camp Masonry. And so what I was really trying to emphasize was, 1, fellowship. 2, this is going to be the first time that Flagstaff has added music to its degrees, but it's not the music that we've been generally hearing at traditional lodges. Most of the time we're down there and we're visiting friends at their lodges, they'll generally have really beautiful classical music. Like I said, Flagstaff 7, it's a little bit more of a rural lodge. And I don't think classical music, at least up front, was going to be met very well with our culture. Not that we don't like it and appreciate it when we go see it, but it just necessarily wasn't us. And so because this is Arizona, because we're outside and this is the West, I was like, okay, this is an outdoor degree. Let's theme this music with classic Western music from movies. And so it took me, it took me over 9 months, I think, where I was just listening to every classic Western soundtrack. And I was like, okay, this can easily fit here. This can easily fit here. And so essentially what I did was score the third degree, but to be done in a classic Western feel. And we were kind of going for like, your Tombstone kind of vibe.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm kind of nervous about it. I'm sure there's going to be some people that think it should be classical music, and I was just like, I think it's a cultural thing at that point.
Justin, we always say, I think Mark St. Cyr had quoted us one time, something like, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And culture in an organization is so important. And if the goal is to maintain what is special and traditional and cultural about a particular organization or lodge, then I think it's very important to maintain those things. You think of traditional observance lodges. I really wasn't the biggest fan of traditional observance when it had first been coined, because I thought, there's not much tradition behind what they're saying is traditionally observant, which they have now sort of admitted to. But what I do like about exposing ourselves to concepts in both the traditional observant type masonry, if you compile that with the best practices in your area and what hits the mark for your members, I think you have a real opportunity. And forgive the analogy, but like a salad bar, you take the best of what will work for you and you run with it. And that's the beauty of it. I've traveled all over and I've seen masonry done different ways that wouldn't be considered observant or traditional masonry, but would be considered just as impactful and meaningful and, fun as anything else. So I love this whole idea of you theming it. Music adds such a dramatic sort of more meat, on the bone for the degree. And I think when you do what you do and you take some really good ideas and you have done the research on what you think will fit places and you feel it when you're thinking about it, I think it's going to be fantastic. So I think everybody's in for a treat. Thank you so much.
It really means a lot hearing you say that, because there's been mostly good feedback, but I've had a couple of good friends down in, one of them actually in Tucson, where I told him the idea of how I wanted to theme it culturally, and he was like, his exact words were, I like how much effort you're putting into this, but I do think you are half a step off of blasphemy. And I just I started laughing. He was saying it as a joke, but he was serious when he said it. He's a great guy, but he was being slightly serious where he was not into the idea. Well, and I think I'm not going to please everybody.
That's totally fine. I think everybody's going to come to this. They'll likely get they'll have their experience, and that is what people should focus on, a new and exciting and interesting experience. And thinking about that event, let me ask, what do you think attendees can expect in terms of activities, ceremonies, festive boards during the event? Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what's being planned for the schedule?
Absolutely. So Friday is when we're trying to get brothers in to come in and camp out. It'll be like the soft camping, if you will.
Sure.
So Friday evening, Worshipful Brother Dave Sahady from Aslan Lodge Number 1 in Arizona, he's going to be hosting what's called the Quarry Sessions. He just started doing these around Arizona this year. And essentially what it is, it's basically a Masonic support group kind of a conversation, to where he just gathers brothers together and creates a space to where people can voice concerns or things that they're working on individually, just to have a conversation that's really highlighting growth. whether it's being vulnerable about certain things that have happened or overcoming certain things that you've seen in yourself when you first joined and then to where you're at now in your Masonic journey. Last year, when we had the camping session, Worshipful Brother Dave Sahedi was there, and it actually kind of turned into something similar to what this event's going to be, to where there was a handful of us where there were conversations where people were like, this doesn't really make me happy as far as how these certain things go sometimes. And it was a really great opportunity for brothers to share their opinions in a place where they weren't going to be judged for their opinion. And I think that was incredibly valuable. And
I think that's awesome. That's a really valuable exercise in actual Freemasonry, right? We're called to celebrate with our brothers' successes and be there for them in times of sadness. And, not to use a sort of politicized term of a safe space or anything, but to be honest,
I was trying to avoid the term, but
our brothers are who we should be able to talk to about all things. And if all we're talking about is the weather, I think sometimes we're missing the point. So I think that's a great addition to the event.
Thank you. Yeah. No, we are really excited to have him back. We love him at Flagstaff Summit. He's a great guy. And so I think it'll be a fun way to start it off to where brothers can have those kind of conversations for a little bit and just really get into the meat and bones and not just have, like you said, just talking about the weather, things that might not be as important as some soul searching we could be doing. So Saturday is going to be the main day, if you will, of the event. We're going to be having a outdoor third degree. It's going to be starting at around 10 a.m. is when we're hoping to make sure the gavel falls by. We'll have a breakfast beforehand. We want to start it a little bit later. That way, those who were inevitably up pretty late from the camping can at least hopefully get a couple of hours of sleep. And then it'll allow other brothers traveling that didn't camp Friday to get there with a little bit of extra time. So we'll start a degree at around 10 a.m. In between the conferral and the section, we'll break for a lunch. That's probably going to be around 11:30, 11:45. We'll have lunch. We'll go back. We'll do the second section, the lecture, say thank you to everybody coming out, and have a really good time with the candidate, and conclude the degree. Once the degree is done, something that we're really excited about doing is we called it Solomon Saloon, King Solomon Saloon. And it's essentially what we're trying to do is create like a kind of casino night to where there's going to be about a couple hours of space in between the degree and the table lodge. And what we're trying to do is we can have 5-card draw, Texas Hold'em, Liar's Dice, Cornhole, and various other games that brothers can play. And the raffle is technically what it is. And how we work is you can exchange $20 for 40 chips. And these are just going to be plastic chips. They're not going to have a numerical value. So this is all on the up and up, no gambling. Brothers will be able to play these games with each other. And at the end of 2 hours, we're going to call it, and we're going to count the chips. Whoever has the most amount of chips, we're going to give 20% of the take, and they can have a seat at the head table for the table lodge later that night. And then second place will get 10%. And then all of the other money that we raise is just going to our Clothe the Child event we annually do in November. And
so tell us a little bit about that clothing drive.
Sure. So I think the charity is something that is a really awesome outgrowth of the Masonic fraternity, but it wasn't necessarily what I was joining for. Having said that, this is honestly one of my favorite things that we do at Flagstaff every year. What Clothe the Child is we will raise about $7,000 a year, and we talk to the nurses at the elementary schools in Flagstaff, and we have them get in contact with the families of students that they think that just need some help. And we get in contact with the families, and we'll bring out anywhere from 20 to 30 if we can raise enough funds to do so. And we give them breakfast. And then depending on which store that we're partnering with, the last couple of years we've partnered with Kohl's, we will take these children out and go on a clothing shopping spree. And they get to run around with their chaperone, and they get to pick out all the clothes that they want to buy. It's really fun. And what we are trying to accomplish with this is, one, regardless of, like this is, a desert state, Arizona is high desert. We're at 7,000 feet and we get a lot of snow. And so we really want these children to have clothes for the winter. And another big thing is we would really like to be able to provide them clothes to where everything that they need, we're trying to cover. That way, when Christmas comes around the corner, hopefully their parents don't have to get them things that they need, and they might be able to get a thing or two that they might want. And so we'll take them on a shopping spree. We come back to the lodge. We'll serve lunch. There's arts and crafts. We have Santa Claus, the real one for sure, come in. The kids will meet him and get a couple of presents from him and whatnot. And it's a really fantastic day. And so any of the proceeds that we get from this event, that's all what it's going to. We're literally just raising funds for that charity that we do.
That's really cool, man. I'm glad to hear that you've got that element to the event in itself. As you kind of were walking through some of those things, so we have the Solomon Saloon, and then what's up?
And then after the Solomon Saloon is going to be the Table Lodge. And you were so gracious enough to accept to be our main speaker. And yeah, so thankfully we've rented a wedding tent. So even if there is just slightly off weather or whatever, we will be totally safe from all elements. And we have canopies for the outdoor degree for everybody too. But we'll be having a table launch. We'll start checking people in at around 5:30 and get the event kicked off at 6. And it'll be family-style serving is what Cal and Brother Zach Nelson has decided to come up with. They're the ones who are a little bit better with food. And what we want to do is we want brothers sitting at the table, and it'll be massive trays of the barbecue. It's probably going to be barbecue and the bread and the potatoes and whatnot, but we'll have massive trays come out, and it'll kind of be like everyone's just passing trays along and just eating together at tables. Very Western and an outdoor campy kind of a style. It's not, so we're really excited about that.
That's the way, right? Like just pass the bread down, rip a hunk off, keep going.
It's pretty close to that. It'll be pretty close to that.
Love it.
So we're really excited about that aspect of it. And then obviously we'll be having you speaking. It'll be your presentation on the Master's Word, which will be really nice because we'll have a candidate fresh in there that just went through his third degree, and hopefully someone will have had a few conversations with him to prep him for the lecture that you'll give. But I think it'll be a really great introduction to him being able to get that information, as well as other Masons in Arizona that might not have thought about too much about, what goes into the Master's Word and how that works.
It sounds incredible. I mean, really thinking about this and how you were talking about referring earlier to the fellowship that you guys sort of foster leads me to thinking about participation in this and community building. How do you see this event really fostering a sense of community and brotherhood among Masons?
One thing that I'm really excited to be able to say is, like I said and mentioned earlier, we had just had our grand communications. When we were down there, what's happening is there's a handful of brothers from various lodges or whatever and say, hey, I rented out a cabin, so I'm coming up with brothers from our lodges. So there's going to be groups of lodges that'll be coming up. And anytime where we can create harmony between multiple lodges, this is just going to lead to other events in the future. I'm hoping that we can manage together in events that we can put together. Who knows what, maybe ball dances or whatever it is. But really what we want to do is just provide an event where brothers can come together, have fellowship, and just be brothers with brothers and just enjoy the various kinds of conversations that they'll have. It'll basically, what we're trying to do is just capitalize on those after lodge conversations that we all have, the after event conversations that everybody gets to have. That's what we want our event to be, with a little bit of really good ritual, a little bit of education, and just a bunch of fun. That's really what we're trying to foster. And anytime where we can get brothers coming together, having a good time, having conversation, I think that really is going to add to the experience, the overall experience that I think a lot of Masons are wanting right now where the education is awesome, and I think a lot of brothers really want that. But if you're just coming to lodge and you're either getting your education or, unfortunately, maybe not even getting that education, and then not only that, but then there might not be after conversations about it to really dig into what you hopefully were learning, it's a half experience, you know?
Yeah. I have to agree. It's only half of the experience. You have to have fellowship and a little bit of something extra plus the education. Because when it's just one, you really are missing out. You're missing out.
And, a fun analogy I literally just thought of, it's like, in alchemy, you have the salt, sulfur, and mercury, and the whole premise of that is separating them, refining them, but bringing them back together. Well, if you're missing one of those pieces, like we're just talking about, it's like, you don't have the full experience, right? It's so funny. So a couple of years ago, I'm sure this is probably really similar for most lodges out there. 2020 was hard. I'm sure almost everybody was shut down for probably that whole year. Maybe not January and maybe not February, but pretty much March through December, more than likely. And picking up those pieces to get lodges back on track for meeting up in person and, getting back into masonry, it wasn't easy. And that was actually when I started joining. So I started going into the Flagstaff 7 Lodge and meeting the brothers and whatnot at the tail end of 2019. 2020 happened, and I lost that. So in Flagstaff, in Arizona, actually, we want you to be there for 6 months before we give you a petition, just so you can get to know the brothers can get to know you, and everyone feel like this is a good fit, which I think is a really awesome thing that we do. Well, unfortunately, the lodge is shut down before I could get a petition. So I had to, what I would do is, as time went on, I would go downtown and I would go to the lodge building, and I knew if this one window was cracked open, somebody was there. And if I went and knocked on that door, I could get in. And this is actually how I formed the relationship with my mentor, Brad Ingram, who's the worshipful master of Flagstaff this year, and also a major inspiration for this event as well. And so that's how he and I started developing our relationship. And then once Lodge opened back up, everyone was just so hungry to just be with brothers and be with people, because everyone had just, had to go through quarantine for, a year and a half in some places. Obviously, we were still in mass. We were doing everything that we could, socially distance and whatnot. That human interaction, and I think what I really personally wanted as a millennial is, during that year, 2020, not only was, I think there was an election year that year, and COVID. So everyone on social media was just so incredibly polarized, where I could go on Facebook, I could say, hey, my favorite color is purple, and I would ruin somebody's day. I mean, that's how hostile.
That's it. I'm hanging up on
you. During the. Yeah, I know. It was. it was just so hostile, and so when I started being able to get back into the lodge and talking to the brothers of Flagstaff 7, one thing that I just valued just so much was being able to have a disagreement with someone and everyone being absolutely okay. And we're like, hey, that's okay that you disagree. I think that's great that you think what you think and I think what I think. And the brothers were just so happy just to be together. It didn't matter if there were minor disagreements on whatever it was. And just that unity that we had,
I mean,
it was just so beautiful.
There's a line in Ritual, right? It's backed up by science, right? That line is God made man dependent on each other. And you think about,
I was thinking of the circumambulation. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity.
Yeah, even in science backs this up, right? Like between dopamine and oxytocin, like you get a dopamine response for things that are happening online that excite you. But if I shake your hand or give you a hug, you have an instant release of oxytocin. And these are like pleasurable chemicals. These are things that your brain says, oh, this is good. And just think about this sort of deficit of oxytocin that we were all experiencing and trying to make up for it somehow on Zoom calls, seeing each other's faces and stuff, but we weren't able to be close, which is why, like, throughout history, science shows that these things that happen with people and mental health during times of pandemic and strife where we can't get together, so detrimental. But in the same respect, we look back at how Freemasons, I don't know what it is. The people I know that live the longest are Masons who are ritual experts. And I think that has something to do with memory, and they're just busy, and something to do and how happy they are to be there. And maybe that happiness makes them live to 120 years old. I don't know, but it's something like that. It's something, man.
As far as the longevity goes for eight, or just, and just being happy, I feel like a lot of that, because, if you're really diving into the ritual, the main reason why I was striving to become a master ritualist is because the first charge I learned, it was the second degree charge. And after I learned it and got it to the point where it was deliverable, like it was worthy to be put in, an actual degree, I started noticing changes in myself to where it was just like something would happen that just 2 weeks ago, it had sent me up a wall and I would have lost my mind. You know what I mean? I'd be in a grouchy mood or something. And it was so drastic that from a third person, I was able to look at myself and like, why am I not upset right now? I'm like, oh, it's the ritual. That's what it does to you. I really think like the more you repeat it, the more you think about it, the more you're practicing it, and the more you're in it. I honestly think that is how we make good men better.
It is so strange that you mentioned that.
With that.
Because you can hear it 1,000 times, and maybe you never are absorbing it or processing it. And the second you start to memorize it, at the first, it's just kind of cadence. Bop, 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 bop. You're going through it. Yeah. And then after a while, you kind of think, oh, I just said this. You're understanding what you're saying. Even though it's kind of old language, you're starting to understand everything you're saying, and you go, oh. And it just it starts clicking. It's almost like reprogramming yourself in some odd way. But it is fantastic.
I really think so, and I think you've actually had. But I think you've actually had episodes in the past where I don't remember which episode it was, but you were reading articles where the premise of it was, once we get these concepts into our subconscious and we're not thinking about it, which is essentially what we're doing with ritual. When you're trying to deliver it, it's not like you're sitting there thinking about the next word that comes. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're singing a song in a sense, in a sense. But that ritual is now part of you. It's in your subconscious, whether you're thinking about it or not, throughout your day. And because those words are always going to remain with you, it's going to affect your character. And I think a very positive manner.
I think you're right. Moving up to this and thinking about some of the exciting things that are going to be happening at this particular event, what are you personally most excited about for this event?
Wow, it's a really good question. It's a draw. One, I am really excited for you to speak in person, and me getting to be able to be there for it. I'm really excited for that and having you out. But honestly, I'm really excited for the fellowship. To be able to be part of a group of guys that are putting together this kind of an event that just really is trying to drive home like, hey, come out, have a good time, meet really great brothers, and have really great conversation. A dash of good ritual, a dash of really good food, and a dash of education. To me, this is like my ideal Masonic event for me personally. And so I think really just having visiting brothers. We've got some coming from Las Vegas that heard about it and want to come down for that. There's a handful of lodges from the Phoenix area that are going to come up, multiple brothers from multiple lodges. Shout out to our brothers at Arizona number 2, Prescott number 1, Acacia, Ascension, lots of other lodges that are coming up. We love all of them, getting to see them at Grand Communication, having them come up and just spend time with us. The conversations, I think really are my favorite part of what's going to happen. So,
I'm right there with you.
Fellowship overall.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because I feel like my good friend Chad Kopensky, he's past ed chair for Ohio for the Third Grand Lodge. He changed the way I thought about Masonry a long time ago, and something that he has always sort of ingrained in any event that he's working on planning is he emphasizes, yes, there's these sessions that we go to learn, but he's one of the first people to defend the idea of extended breaks and collaboration time, even if it's not labeled as collaboration time. He just calls it like, there has to be an hour of fellowship between this and this. Guys need to talk. Because that's, as you were mentioning, those conversations are really those conversations we have when we're sitting on the back of a truck bed after lodge, And I think that's one of the most exciting parts.
Yeah, you're digesting the education from the evening. You're digesting maybe a conversation that came up after when you're really thinking about it. I think having that time to really not just gloss over what was being talked about, but really dig deep and find out what it means to you, how you feel about it, how you can contribute to the conversation, other perspectives that you can learn from. I think that's one of the biggest ways that we as Masons grow. I think it's one of the greatest parts of our fraternity, and facilitating that just excites me to no end, along with, the other members of the Camp Cornerstone community. We are just so excited to have an event to be able to do that's dedicated to that with, obviously some things that everybody else is really interested in, but yeah, the capitalizing on the fellowship and the conversations and just growing together. That's what this event is about.
Everyone, I wanted to let you know that this event is very exciting to me and to countless others. Justin, one last question. For the listeners who are interested in attending, can you give us a little bit of information on how they can get their tickets and what steps they need to take to prepare for the event?
Absolutely. So our website is going to be the best place where we can have brothers go and visit to register for it. It's flagstaff7.org. On there, we'll have the registration page. It's literally the first thing that pops up on our website is Camp Cornerstone. Registration, the website has not been updated yet. We have extended registration to August 1st. So if you see July 1st, don't worry about it. You can still sign up. Flagstaff7.org is going to be the easiest place to find that. You can find it through our Facebook page as well.
This is wonderful. For those interested, I'll have links back to all of those sites that Brother Justin has mentioned, as well as more in the show notes for this particular episode. Justin, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and for putting this together and being excited about doing this and bringing something truly unique and what I might consider even more Masonic than a regular old Masonic symposium, something like this, which takes us back to the intrinsic nature of what, Freemasonry is kind of about, fellowship and gathering.
Right.
And
the good old days.
The good old days, sure, yeah. So maybe a little bit of frontier Masonry, a little bit of just good old-fashioned fellowship. So I want to thank you so much, brother.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Worshipful Brother, for having me on. It's been an absolute honor, and just thank you so much for having us on and be able to talk about this.
All right, our thanks one more time goes out to Camp Cornerstone Committee and also with Brother Justin, who has helped put this whole thing together, and for coming on the program. You can find links back to Camp Cornerstone in the show notes, as well as all over our website on the presentation schedule. If you click on that when you go to our website, wcypodcast.com. So that's it for this week. I want to thank one more time our supporters of the show, the producers, fellows, and contributors, and of course, our legacy partners. We can't do any of it without you, and if you're curious on how to support the show, again, visit our website, wcypodcast.com, click on Support the Show, and check out the options. Until next week, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson. Take care.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.
WCY Media.
This is